Right, so we've seen many a resignation of Labour councillors up and down the country under the regime of Keir Starmer, but a good many of these were happening long before he reaffirmed his devotion to Israel, as his diktat and swerve to the right has driven more away. But more importantly than that, voters have left too, as by-election defeats at council level, certainly in areas Labour consider to be strongholds, should serve as a warning, because if you're losing at local level, that will inevitably knock on as activists and voters leave the party in search of better options, and the knock-on effect goes up higher and higher. We saw such an occurrence happen in Newham a few months ago as Mehmood Mirza, formerly of the Labour Party, a victim of a smear and spying campaign as documented in the excellent Al-Jazeera documentaries, became the first independent elected to a council that is, with the exception of 2 Greens and a suspended Labour councillor currently sitting as an independent, solidly Labour. It was a pretty big deal. Since then, the cracks have continued to show as the independent group, calling themselves Newham Independents, a group that has formed because of Starmer and what he's done to Labour, are attempting a repeat of Mirza's win by taking another formerly Labour seat off the party, as another by-election worth watching takes place next week. Right, so Newham Borough Council, a Labour-run council, not without its issues with Starmer, however, as a recent letter from the mayor there sent to their leader spelling out their position that they wish to see a ceasefire shows the obvious concern and clear issues Labour councillors face in an area that is so ethnically and religiously diverse as Newham is. People are sickened by the National Party message, and it's local councillors that get stripped out first. The by-election here actually having been triggered by Starmer's pro-Israel stance, since it is an example of a Labour councillor not just quitting the party over the anti-ceasefire positioning of the Labour Party that we've seen other councillors do up and down the country, but actually in this instance the councillor in question quit the council entirely. I mentioned this in another recent video, the departure of this chap called Daniel Lee Facco, the councillor for Pleistone North. Well, the Newham Independents are putting up their own candidate for this seat now, Sophia Naqvi, a former Labour member of 15 years standing who, like so many other Labour members, resigned over the Starmer ceasefire stance on Israel, still refusing to call one even as the death toll in Gaza hits 12,000 people. Now, the Newham Independents are an entity of Starmer's own making. They've essentially come into being since the election of Mehmood Mirza, himself formerly Labour, of the Labour left, a group of former Corbyn supporters as they are, having to stand as independents because they are no longer welcome in the Labour Party, not prepared to sacrifice for what they believe in for the sake of power. Mirza was actually the victim of a Labour campaign against him to discredit him, all covered, as I said before, in the Al-Jazeera Labour Files documentaries, which, if you've not seen them yet, you can still access on YouTube. They are essential watching if you really want to know what Labour is all about these days under Starmer. It is scandalous. Mirza left Labour when Starmer decided to suspend both Newham constituencies for blatantly factional reasons. The final straw for Mirza personally was that he had made it onto the ballot for the Labour National Executive Committee elections before finding himself spuriously suspended, thus barring him from getting elected. He went on to win that Newham Council seat, Boleyn Ward. Even more funny is the fact that the Labour candidate he ended up beating was no less than the head of events and visits for Keir Starmer himself, working out of the opposition leader's office. But now the plan is to get Sophia Naqvi elected as well, and she spoke to Islam TV the other day about why she left Labour, of course, and the situation in Gaza. But Keir Starmer, as a human rights lawyer, cannot represent her when he will not support a ceasefire, will not think of the people of Palestine, and is seemingly indifferent to the deaths of babies and the displacement of huge numbers of people. Somebody like that cannot represent someone like her, and so many of us feel just like she does, not just on this issue, but many others. We've left Labour because of what it has become and the messaging coming out from the Labour leadership now. Naqvi is also standing to do the work of a councillor, though. Obviously, it's a job after all. Not just a pro-ceasefire candidate, though, because Labour have had dominance in Newham for so long, about 100 years. Newham has been Labour roughly as long as Labour has been in existence. But they have become complacent in that time. Nationally, the Labour Party attitude on Islamophobia is rank, and as a Muslim herself, Sophia Naqvi feels let down on that issue too. But locally, the streets are filthy, parking is a massive problem, crime rates are rising, fly tipping is rife, council tax has gone up by 26% since 2018. The Labour-run council there scrapped visitor permits and the first car-free permit, and residential satisfaction with that council over the last 3 years has dropped by 48%. The cultural diversity of Newham plays a part here too, because the messaging from Starmer and co is opening the eyes to more and more people who have been lifelong Labour voters in Newham and now can't stand the thought of supporting them. Matters going beyond just an attitude of voting against the Tories, because they are seeing no difference in Labour. An actual disgust at those who will not oppose a genocide is something people are not prepared to vote for. Polling doesn't reflect anger on this scale, and if replicated sufficiently across the country, there can be some very embarrassed pollsters around yet again. By standing as an independent, though, NACV can speak out, can show her independence, stand for what she believes in, can show the solidarity she wants to, and speak freely about it without feeling she's got eyes on her from her own party with a view to suspend or expel her on whatever fiction the governance and legal unit these days can concoct, as we've seen happen to too many good and decent people. The issue of anti-Semitism used against them, but Islamophobia in turn gets ignored. That said, the situation in Gaza, the response to NACV's campaign has brought together people from across the religious divides, having people of all faiths in this ethno-multicultural area, including Jewish constituents supporting her, and her position in stark opposition to that of Labour, her former party. If you regard yourself as a humanitarian, then supporting Labour right now under this leader is impossible, surely. He talks of humanitarian pauses, but where's the humanitarianism in it when it's all about resuming the killing after a bit of food and water gets through? Stop the killing completely, and more food and water could get through for a start. Mehmood Mirza proved that you don't need the money or the resources when you have a right and just cause behind you. And when you have people who want to be associated with doing the right thing, who will give their free time and effort to help deliver that. And so many of the people that Labour have driven away are the most politically active ones, the ones that will go out in the pouring rain, in the wind, delivering leaflets and having conversations on doorsteps. Labour has lost those. And that's why it lost before in Newham, and that is why it can quite easily lose again next Thursday. At the end of the day, this is ordinary people living ordinary lives, wanting to clean up their area that they as residents live in, and also to stand for a worthwhile cause as we witness such atrocity in the Middle East on a daily basis, as this genocide is allowed to continue with the support of those who would rule over us given the chance. This is one of those community-led grassroots campaigns taking on a big beast party that isn't doing what it should be, and nationally is carrying a message that is rancid and contemptible. Newham is sick of Labour and sick of Starmer, and adding another independent voice, a voice of what Labour once was and what it should be and what it is supposed to be at that. Real Labour voters with real Labour values should be backing the real Labour Party around here, and that means a vote for not Labour, but for Sophia NACV on November the 23rd. So if you've got a vote in Plystone North, get out and use it. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Please like, share and subscribe if you did. More content out daily. Do have your say on the video in the comments below and be part of the conversation. Meanwhile, here's a video recommendation where Mehmood Mirza won back in July, and the atmosphere that was permeating the Labour Party then too. Nothing's changed. Not least a Muslim member of the Labour Party NEC itself being blocked from being a parliamentary candidate in addition to that. Says an awful lot about its position regarding Islamophobia, doesn't it? And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.